the Dutch governor of Hindia English stimulated the greatness of Java. Raffles was born on the slave ship and on July 6, 1781. No one had ever predicted his lifeline would be an influential intellectual. Raffles' education had to stop when he was 14 years old. As a teenager, he had to replace her father as the backbone. Raffles worked hard in devotion to EIC. He knew there was a mother and 4 sisters to live with. Raffles did drop out of school, but it doesn't mean he stopped learning things. The scope of science that Raffles studied was broad enough to touch on science, language, and history. Until in 1805, Raffles was later sent to Malaysia, Penang Island, and started their relationship with Southeast Asia. When the Tuntang Agreement came between the British and the Dutch over the submission of power from Jantan to Raffles, EIC finally designated Raffles as a governor on Java in those days. Before becoming governor on the Java of the time, Raffles had served as a British Governor-General in Singapore. Among the forms of the Raffles policy when a rule in the Dutch Indies was some. First, all forms of labor and compulsory surrender must be eliminated and replaced by free planting by the people. Second, the recruit's role as tax collector was removed and recruits added as part of the colonial government. Further, on the basis of the view that the land belonged to the government, people were viewed as morally tenants of the land. Raffles' policy in the government area is the first to divide the island of Java into 16 residencies. The second replaces the colonial system with the feudal system. The recruits then become employees of the colonial government directly under the central government. In other words, they get paid in cash. Raffles' policy in economy is that 1. The laying of village as an administrative unit of colonization. 2. The elimination of monopoly system. 3. The elimination of labor and enslavement. 4. The abolition of mandatory overseas surrender. 5. Implementing a land rent or tax system. This land rent system was a form of compulsory surrender and forced labor abolished. People here are free to plant crops that are deemed profitable. All the land belonged to the colonial government. The farmers had the obligation to pay land rents to the colonial people. The lease in some area is done according to contract and deadline. Raffles also very influential scientific policies among them. 1. Reading a book entitled History of Java and published in 1817. The book listed the people on the island of Java as the custom, geography, the farming, commerce, language, and religion that existed on this island of Java. Raffles also supported the Batavia Genootschap, a scientific culture association. Raffles also found Rafflesia arnoldi flowers in the tropical forests of the Bengkulu region, so that Bengkulu is known as the Earth of Rafflesia. He also pioneered the construction of Bogor Botanical Garden, keen on developing the yard of Bogor Palace into a beautiful garden. Eventually, Raffles conjured the palace yard into a classic British-style park. Raffles also helped John Crawford to the research and produced 3 volumes of the book, The History of the East Indian Archipelago. It was his interest in culture, history, and artwork that made Raffles more passionate about Javanese. Perhaps Raffles is the India Dutch Governor-General who is willing to take time to learn Javanese and be sympathetic to Earthsoners. Because that was the next day, Raffles was better known as the book reader, The History of Java, then the governor who introduced the land lease system. Some other historians view Raffles as a part of the Western imperialism introduced into the Eastern world, as the values offered are incompatible and politically forced. On other side, Raffles also sent workers to his friend Alexander Har, who opened a farm near Banjarmasin. The working life must be suffering. From his position as the Governor-General of the Hindia Dutch, Raffles may have failed to clean up the Dutch problema. However, Raffles have been able to carry fresh wine to the Dutch, including introducing Temple of the Borobudur first to the world. The Borobudur was nearly impossible to see today without the invention of Raffles.